Alright, today we are going to learn how to solve the most basic of all trig equations. And when we're doing this, we will be doing this with the unit circle, so you should not be using your calculator for this. And you will be working with this in IXL. So you will begin in IXL and you'll get questions that look like this: cosine of theta equals 0. And it tells you to find all solutions with 0 degrees less than or equal to theta less than or equal to 180 degrees. So that limits the section of the unit circle that we're looking at. If we don't limit that, then there's an infinite amount of answers that we could have here. So I'm going to just write this down over here so we can remember what the question is asking, because I am going to flip over here to the unit circle. And so we are looking for a place where the cosine of theta equals 0. So we're looking somewhere on the unit circle. We're only looking from 0 to 180, where cosine, which is our y-coordinate, equals 0. So if we look at all of our y-coordinates here on that portion of the unit circle, right here is our answer. Theta, of course, is the angle. That's what we're trying to find. So theta is going to equal 90 degrees. Now, you'll notice down here at 270 degrees, cosine also equals 0 here, but remember, IXL told us only to look from 0 to 180. 270 is too big. So we would just type in 90 here and submit. Okay, so our next problem is sine of theta equals negative 1/2. And this time it tells us we're only looking from negative 90 degrees to positive 90 degrees. So if we go back to that unit circle there, negative 90 degrees would be down here. It would be the same as 270. So we're looking from right here up to 90 degrees. And we're looking for where sine equals negative 1/2. Sine is our y-coordinate whenever we're looking at our unit circle. So we're looking for where sine is negative 1/2. Sine's negative down here in this fourth quadrant. And right here you can see that sine equals negative 1/2. Now notice, I want to put theta equals 330 degrees. But it told me that negative 90 has to be less than x less than 90. 330 is not between negative 90 and positive 90. So rather than thinking of this as 330 degrees, we want to think about it as a negative angle, and that would be negative 30 degrees. So instead of using 330, we want to use negative 30. So make sure that whatever you get is fitting into that interval that it's asked for. If you get a number that's too big, so like 330 does have a sine of negative 1/2, but it's too big to be in this range. So just like we were doing with the other values on the unit circle, we could add or subtract 360 degrees. So if we subtract 360 here, of course we get that negative 30, which is our answer. So let's type that one in. And that one is correct. I'm going to skip ahead because I have this to the next type of problem that you'll see. And keyboard's typing like crazy. Alright, so this time we've got to do a little bit more work for this problem. We've got negative 2 cosine of theta plus 2 equals 0. So before we can solve this equation, we have to solve this equation for cosine of theta. So I would subtract the 2 here. So I would have negative 2 cosine of theta equals negative 2. And I would divide both sides by negative 2. And so I'm looking where cosine of theta equals 1. And on the unit circle, notice this time it says 0 less than or equal to theta less than or equal to pi. So since they said pi right here, they're asking us to use radians. So if I go to that unit circle, I'm looking between 0 and pi, and I want to see where cosine equals 1 and cosine is our x-coordinate. Cosine equals 1 right here at 0. And 0 is between 0 and pi because your endpoints are inclusive here. You've got or equal to. And I believe that's the only place where that happens. So we would say that theta equals 0 here. So if we flip back over here, we can type that in and submit. Okay. Let's skip on to the next level. So here we have 15 sine of theta equals 3 sine of theta. And we've got two sines right here, so we're going to have difficulty solving this with that setup. So what we want to do is, we've got like terms here. I want to subtract 3 sine theta from both sides of this equation. So when I do that, that cancels out everything on the right-hand side. So I'm going to put a 0 there. And right here, I'm going to have 12 sine of theta. So for here, I need to get rid of this 12. So I need to divide both sides by that 12. And so I just end up with sine of theta equals 0. Again, here we are looking from negative 90 less than or equal to theta less than or equal to 90. It tells us that in the problem. So we are looking from basically in the first and fourth quadrant here. We want to know where sine is 0. Sine is your y-coordinate. Sine equals 0 right here at 0. So we would have theta equals 0 degrees for this problem. Let's type in that answer there. Okay, so let's look at what we've got here. This one looks pretty complicated, but don't be alarmed. You've got negative 16 cosine theta plus 7 equals negative 19 cosine theta plus 11 over 2. So you need to solve for that cosine theta first. First thing, you've got to get the cosine thetas together. So I would add 19 cosine theta over here to the 16 cosine theta. So that's going to give you 3 cosine of theta plus 7 is going to be equal to 11 halves. And we are going to need to solve for that cosine of theta here. So we have to subtract the 7. So we've got 3 cosine of theta equals, if we're doing 11 over 2 minus 7, that would be 11 over 2 minus 14 over 2. If we got common denominators, we're going to get negative 3 over 2. And we need to divide both sides by 3. Something that's equivalent to dividing by 3 is multiplying by 1/3. I'm going to do that just because it is easier to do that over here on the right-hand side. So 1/3 times 3 is 1. That's just going to go away. So I've got cosine of theta equals, and here you can have that, those 3's can cancel when you're multiplying this, so you get negative 1/2. This problem told us to look from 0 to 180 degrees. So when we look at that unit circle, we're looking from 0 to 180 degrees. And we're looking for where cosine, which is our x-coordinate, equals negative 1/2. Everything's positive in the first quadrant. Right here, we see we've got that negative 1/2 for our x-coordinate. So that is at 120 degrees. So theta is going to equal 120 degrees. So go back and type that in. Alright, I'm going to skip ahead to the next level. Actually, let me go back to that question. Okay, let's go back to this question because this one asks for tangent. which is more difficult. So negative 18 tangent of theta plus 18 equals 0. So what I'm going to do here is just like whenever I have sine and cosine, I'm going to solve for that tangent theta. So I'm going to subtract the 18 from both sides. I've got negative 18 tangent of theta equals negative 18. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 18. And so tangent of theta is going to equal 1. So here's the problem with tangent. Tangent is not on my unit circle. I should also think, this is asking me to look from negative pi over 2 less than theta less than pi over 2. And so whenever I'm looking for this, I'm only looking from negative pi over 2 would be right here. It's equivalent to 3 pi over 2. Up here to pi over 2, so it's the first and fourth quadrant right here. And when I'm looking for tangent, tangent's not on the unit circle. So whenever I'm looking for tangent, I've got to sort of figure up what I'm going to get for each one of these. I do remember that tangent of theta equals sine of theta over cosine of theta. So for example, I do not know tangent at 0 degrees. But if I do 0 divided by 1, that's going to give me tangent because that's sine divided by cosine. So tangent of 0 is 0. That's going to be our answer. So in order for us to get a tangent of 1, we should have to do sine divided by cosine and get 1. Now, down here in the fourth quadrant, I've got at least one negative value, so I'm not going to use these values as answers. We already tried 0. It did not work. If I do 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2, that is not going to equal 1. But if I do square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2, that is going to give me 1. So this is the answer that we want to use right here at 45 degrees. So our theta is going to be 45 degrees, but the question doesn't want degrees, so we need to type in pi over 4. So we go over here, I'm just going to type in pi over 4, and that will give us our answer. Okay. I'm going to skip to the next level. Okay, so here we have secant of theta equals negative 2. And so we don't know secant of theta. It's not on the unit circle, but I do know that secant of theta equals 1 over cosine of theta, and that has to equal negative 2. So if I think about solving this, if I put this negative 2 over 1 and I cross multiply, this tells me negative 2 cosine theta would have to equal 1. And then if I divide both sides by negative 2, I've got cosine of theta equals negative 1/2. And cosine of theta equaling negative 1/2, I do know that for my unit circle. We are looking from 0 to pi. So on that unit circle from 0 to pi, cosine, which is our x-coordinate, is going to equal negative 1/2 right here at 2 pi over 3, or 120 degrees. So we were supposed to be using radians, so we're going to say 2 pi over 3. So if we go back to IXL and type that in, it'll give us our answer there. Let's see. I'd like to do one that's not secant. Let's just jump to the next level. I think it'll be good. Okay, still secant. That's okay. So we've got negative 14 secant of theta minus 14 equals 0. So negative 14 secant of theta is going to equal positive 14. And then we'll divide both sides by negative 14. So we've got secant of theta equals negative 1. But once again, we don't know how to find secant of theta. So I'm going to change this to 1 over cosine of theta equals negative 1. I can multiply by cosine of theta. And I'm going to get negative 1 cosine of theta equals 1. If I divide off that negative 1, I've just got cosine of theta equals negative 1. I'm looking on the unit circle from 0 to pi. So I'm going to go over here from 0 to pi. Cosine's my x-coordinate right here at pi. That is where my cosine value is negative 1. So pi is going to be my answer here. Alright. Should we probably skip that one? Oh, well. Alright, I'm going to do this one really quickly. 10 secant of theta is going to equal 20. You're going to divide by 10, so secant of theta is going to equal 2. That's 1 over cosine of theta equals 2. Cross multiply 2 cosine theta equals 1. Divide by 2. So what we're looking for, cosine of theta equals 1/2. So on our unit circle, cosine of theta is going to equal 1/2 right here at pi over 3. So we would do pi over 3. Alright, here's one with cosecant. That's what I was wanting to get to. So we've got 2 cosecant of theta minus 8 equals negative 7 cosecant of theta minus 17. So we would need to solve for the cosecant first. So we could add 7 cosecant theta to both sides. And that would give us 9 cosecant theta. While I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and add the 8 over here. It's going to equal negative 9. I'll divide both sides by 9. So cosecant of theta equals negative 1. That is 1 over sine of theta equals negative 1. So if you could actually, instead of cross multiplying here, just think about multiplying both sides by sine of theta. It's a little quicker. Or you could cross multiply. Either way, it's going to work. Actually, it's not quicker. I'll take that. Divide by negative 1. You might be able to do some of this in your head where you're not writing every step like I am. And so we're looking for where sine equals negative 1. We're looking from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So on our unit circle, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, sine is going to equal negative 1. Right here is your y-coordinate at. We see again here it's 3 pi over 2, but 3 pi over 2 is not between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So here, if we subtract 2 pi, if we go one full rotation back around, then that would be 3 pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2 if you get common denominators, which gives you negative pi over 2. You can probably also see this just from the structure of the unit circle. So, negative out here, negative pi over 2. Okay, and I think that's going to pretty much cover everything that you're going to see on this IXL. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I hope you have a good day.